Hello and welcome to another one of my videos. This will be the only video I do before my reaction video to episode 8. And past that, I'll be doing whatever theory isn't covered by the show. In other words, not everything's gonna get an answer, so I will still be doing videos after the show ends. And past that, I'll probably get into other things in the community. I'm not gonna really tell as of now because I don't know how it's gonna go, so I'll have to wait and see what I have in store for later on. But today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Today we're going to talk about good and bad writing decisions, because Murder Drones is somewhat of a unique case. Certain actions, if they happen in any other show, they're just bad. However, Murder Drones has laid out the groundwork to make some good decisions bad and some bad decisions good. The topics we'll be covering are V coming back to life, Tessa coming back as a drone, Jay getting a good amount of screen time, and of course, who wins at the end of the show. Because there will be a victor and there will be a loser. Let's first start with V. Now, V is a complicated case. On one hand, her coming back to life invalidates the end of episode 6, or at the very least takes something away from this scene. However, they did kind of leave off that she was eventually dead. We never got any confirmation, which did leave some suspicion in the back of everyone's head. My problem isn't with leaving her dead because of the scene, but more so because of everything else. Up until this moment, we've literally seen not just V, but N as well, just butchered, ripped apart, and yet they still come back. Not only that, but from episode 6 alone, Alice and Bo are the reasons why none of these drones come back online. We see a ton of disassembly drones just lying around, doing nothing, immobile, and we find out later that all these cores are actually active in the oven, but they just can't do anything because they're overheating. So with the oven destroyed and Alice and Bo dead, there really isn't a good principle to, well, make V stay dead. Especially with all that we've seen. She's definitely coming back, however, the execution of how she comes back will determine whether or not this is a good decision or a bad decision. That being said, I do think, regardless, it is a bad decision not to bring her back because of how lore-breaking it is. If it ruins one scene with her coming back, so be it, but I'd rather have one scene ruined than have several ruined. Which, to me, just makes more sense. Let's not ruin moments from episode 3, 4, and the earlier moments of 6 just to preserve episode 6's ending. Even if a lot of people don't like that. Okay, so we've established that V not coming back is a bad idea, because it invalidates a lot of these earlier scenes, but her not being dead invalidates the end of episode 6. So, what is the good writing decision here? Well, it's a little hard to say, but here's my take on it. And sure, I think V is going to be coming back as a completely different person. I think the Absolute Solver activating will put her in a cycle of life and death until she's victorious against the Sentinels. I think that this experience will kill the V we know, and a new V will take her place. This won't just show in personality either, but her physical appearance. Expect there to be tendrils, extra disassembly drone limbs, fleshy bits, and even some Sentinel parts. Her new appearance and personality should tell the story of her trauma that caused the old version of her to die. I know some of you would really like to see exactly what I've described happen on screen, but unfortunately there isn't enough time for that. Instead, N with his sacrifice conflicts will die and the Absolute Solver in him will activate, so we'll see N transform and that will explain V's transformation, killing two birds with one stone. I want to be clear though, N and V won't have a lot of control with their abilities, rather their new forms will be due to overheating from oil loss. Kind of like Uzi in episode 4, but not exactly the same. She overheated for a different reason, but well, they're probably going to overheat. Maybe it is the same reason. Maybe they'll get flustered or embarrassed. or maybe just strong emotions in general will cause this nonsense, because we don't know exactly what causes it, but it is strong emotions. So maybe it's just fear or some other strong emotion. But where's the proof, you might be asking? So in episode 1, we see the Solver block ends Absolute Solver through Sin's administration after he regrows his head, an ability overly seen by Solver-infected drones. But we only see disassembly drones heal in this manner when they lose a part of their body, such as N in episode 7, when he loses his arm, which has rebar going through it, so you know it's not going anywhere. And yet, in the very next scene, with N, his arm is back. My guess is that the Solver automated lifting restrictions on the disassembly drone's Absolute Solver under certain circumstances through Sin's administration. So every disassembly drone can heal regardless of injuries unless there isn't enough material. So V could find herself in a live, die, repeat scenario where she kills a few sentinels, dies herself, and then wakes up later. Now eventually she'll lose too much material, but that just means the Absolute Solver's restrictions are removed until the administration decides to put them back. We saw this with Jay when she became an Eldritch. All restrictions on her Solver were lifted, but just like every other drone, those abilities take time to master, which is why we only see Sin using those abilities, but make no mistake, those abilities belong to Jay. That's also why we never see Eldritch J use the Solver's telekinesis abilities, because she doesn't have them. The Solver can only use the version of the program downloaded on the drone. Up until this point, my explanation is mostly speculation, but we also know that N is going to go through some kind of transformation because of the acrylic merch, and Nori's journal, which points out the Solver on the drones is actively nerfed. Well, we don't know that specifically, but we can read some of the text, and unfortunately, not all of it's readable because some of it's cut off. But it talks about the disassembly drones being nerfed, and this maintains control. We don't really see the rest of it. Overall, if they bring V back, whether it's a good rating decision or not, matters far more on the execution rather than the act of her coming back. For example, if she comes back as if nothing happens, that's just as bad as ignoring the lore. Moving to the next topic, should Tessa come back as a drone? I wish I had my easy button, because the answer is no. It would be a bad writing decision easily, because it ruins the end of episode 7. But tabling the idea of her coming back as just a regular drone, can she come back in general? Well, let's look at my original theory for this. The picture I painted was a skinless Tessa with various drone components acting as her new skin, along with fleshy Solver bits, and the cherry on top being that she'd gone completely feral, even consuming human corpses. All while wearing the uniform of Elliot Manor to point out that she'd switched places with Sin and the servant-master relationship. But even if that version of Tessa was chained up in one of the ships that crashed in episode 3, this plot point at this point of the story is kind of pointless and time-consuming. When I made that theory, I thought a season 2 would happen and that they'd go to the remnants of Earth and find Tessa in the preserved Elliot Manor. So even the dark path I took is still a bad writing decision because it's kind of forced. Now, is there a good one? Well, I have one more theory on her, and I think it's passable at the very least. It fits time constraints, and it isn't forced. So, what if the Solver never skinned her alive, but rather cut her open and made her into a drone? I've always suspected that Tessa was a synth based on the drone-like outline, but what if the Solver went the extra mile to make her the perfect puppet? Cutting her open and removing anything deemed inefficient and replacing her insides with drone parts. And to ensure an even darker tragedy, let's say the Solver then forces her to eat her own parents, for good measure. This can all be relived through flashbacks, most likely the ones where you see several quick scenes rapidly, like V's flashback in episode 3 that Doll forced. Of course, that will only be for the audience though. I don't think Jay will know. Instead, Jay will probably come to believe that Tessa is Sin. From there, Jay should be able to deal enough damage to Tessa that she becomes immobilized. This leads to the solver switching to another user. Tessa regains control. She then questions Jay about what's going on, states that she's scared. Jay doesn't believe her, but before anything else can happen, Uzi just straight up kills Jay. The solver is now possessing her, and, kills Tessa soon after. This actually makes a lot of sense when you think about it. Why would the solver put its own host at risk instead of a proxy? Why send Sin when you can send a body double? Even the camera zooming in on the armband is suspicious, like they're trying to mislead us. So overall, Tessa coming back is hard to do, but it's still doable, and can be a very good writing decision if executed properly, although more would have to be done because my proposal of how she can return is half-baked. Okay, moving on, should Jay get more screen time? This one's very easy. Yes. That being said, there shouldn't be too many scenes that focus on just Jay, as this is Uzi's story, it's about her after all. Now, that doesn't mean Jay can't be in as many scenes as possible with the other characters. I'm just saying that we can't focus on Jay all that much. That would be a bad writing decision. But her being included with everyone else, no reason they can't do that. That would actually be a great decision. Now, we're going to talk about our final topic, who wins in the end. I think that the good writing decision here is to let the solver win, as there is no foreseeable way for our heroes to truly win without pulling a rabbit out of their hat. I mean, maybe Jay using a virus on the solver could work, it would be a great callback at the very least. That being said, if the solver wins, it won't be the outcome Dahl and Khan heavily suggested. That doesn't really bode well with the nature of the show.
If my wife's closet is right, the planet's gonna try to eat us soon.
Had to save yourself, huh?
Я не позволю вычислителю использовать меня и поглотить планету.
Not sure it needs you, buddy.
So I think the good writing decision here is to let the solver win in an unanticipated way. As for why our heroes winning is a bad decision, having our heroes overcome impossible odds only extends the story, so probably a bad place to stop on. Which is why it's a bad writing decision. It wouldn't be bad if there was more to the story, but there isn't. This is it. The finale is coming in a short few days, and even if they destroy the host, what's stopping the solver from acquiring another? But that's gonna have to do it for this video. I'll see you all on Friday when I post my reaction.